Welcome to Stage Sessions. My name is Todd Birdsong. I'm the director of the Clemens Fine Arts Center. And today our guest is Glenn Hall. Glenn is a local photographer and filmmaker. He and I have known each other for several years, been friends for quite some time. And let's all just welcome him to the show today. Hi, Glenn.
Thanks, Todd. Hey. Good to be here.
I'm glad to have you. So out of all the years that we've known each other, one of the things that I've never asked or never thought about even asking, it's probably an assumption on my part, is are you from here? Are you from the Paducah area?
Yes, I grew up here, yeah. I am a child of the 50s uranium plant families.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your family, is there anybody else, like your parents or siblings, anybody else that has more kind of an artistic slant, has some arts background or arts interest?
I think it's, nothing real serious. I think several people just sort of touched on some things, yeah, pretty much that's it. Yeah. Nothing.
So then for you, what was that? Can you remember, like, what was the moment that, like, the switch flipped for you, and you were like, "Hey, I either am a photographer, like I'm a serious photographer now, or I know this is I know this is what I want to do."
I think probably I started out painting and drawing, and that was my passion. That's where I really wanted to go. I wanted to be a painter, and the more I got into it. And I started studying at MSU, and it became frustrating. I couldn't capture quick enough what I was seeing, and the process was slow for me, So gradually, I think just picking up a camera and then suddenly realizing I can capture things quicker, I'm seeing things quicker, then that process kind of took over eventually. At some point, I kind of combined the two, painting and photography. But the photography, I just like that immediate, especially when Polaroid came along. I wanted that immediate end result. So that
right.
Because I was seeing like faster than I could like draw or paint. I just didn't have the patience for that.
Right.
But I love it now. I'm still working on it, but.
Yeah. So you're talking about a time like analog days.
Yes.
So you're talking about film.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were talking about combining that your painting and drawing with photography. What I'm assuming, because of my experience with photography, is you're talking about alternative processes.
Yeah.
Right? So you like platinum printing and gum prints and
some... what is it, the blue cyanotype, yeah,
right.
That type of stuff. And then I was doing a lot of hand coloring as well. So I sort of introduced like a whole portfolio of hand colored photographs. And I enjoyed that.
So you had a few years, if I remember correctly, in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes. And
you were doing a lot of commercial work. In fact, from what I remember, you had a lot of country music, celebrities.
Yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit.
That was probably what kind of drove me visually and creatively. Always like the music was a big, influence. When I was studying photography at SIU, I was putting together a portfolio, and it was primarily black and white and hand colored, and I couldn't get there fast enough to Nashville. I wanted to work in the music industry. Of course, it's pretty competitive at the time, and I just put a book together and started knocking on doors and bugging people and calling people. I really researched thoroughly kind of a list of people I wanted to work with and pursue, and I just kept bugging them, and then, finally, my goal was kind of like to have shot maybe my first major label by the time I was 30. And so I was able to get in with MCA Universal Records. Simon Levy gave me a shot with a new artist and brought me in, which was rare because they hardly even venture out to, new photographers. So that was a big experience right there, and that kind of set the groundwork and set me running. So
You remember who that artist was?
Lionel Cartwright. Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
I did 2 albums with him. It was pretty cool. But then, some of them didn't make it. Some of them did. They kind of, when I came in, I'm a new artist, new photographer, so they would pair me with new artists, new musicians. So at the time, new artists were like Toby Keith and Sammy Kershaw, Shania Twain. So I was working with them, doing projects with them. Some of them went on to, bigger pastures. Some of them didn't. Toby Keith, he was a new artist at the time that I shot his first promo stuff. Yeah,
that's cool. So there's an image that I remember of you. You took an image of Bill Monroe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
While I was in Nashville, some of the connections I had paired me up with Rolling Stone to do editorial shoots from Nashville when they were featuring artists in Nashville. So they were doing a story called Mentors, and they had got Chris Hillman involved, and so his mentor was Bill Monroe. So they contacted me to shoot Chris Hillman and Bill Monroe. So we scouted out at the time the rhyming wasn't working, it wasn't in, so we had to shoot on the stage of the new Grand Ole Opry out in Opryland. Of course, the photos didn't look like we were at Opryland, but that experience of working with Bill Monroe and Chris Hillman, was just like, wow, that's, I couldn't believe I was on stage with them,
Oh yeah,
and
right.
so it's all kind of like a dream now, but
that's huge.
Yeah, it was fun.
So here we are in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so you're a photographer, you're a professional photographer, and you've got all these clients. So even if it's a business client, you're promoting. Let's say you're doing something for maybe Paducah Bank, or and regardless of really what it is, whether it's a one-on-one or a business, there's that element of personal interaction. There's always that with in almost anything in the arts. So since we've been in the pandemic for over a year now, so how has that affected your process or your workflow? And I'm not just talking about the business part of it, because I'm assuming that's affected that a lot. But what just creatively, how has things changed for you?
We had this conversation the other day. It's almost like I'm almost like, because of the mask and having to wear a mask, I feel like I'm suffocating. I feel like there's this pressure when you're trying to work, and you can't relax. There's just something that's there that kind of. So you're trying to fight beyond that to keep creative and keep positive and keep going with it. And after a while, I guess I kind of got used to it, but it still kind of bugs me, and you can't really have the personal conversations you have, because you get in, you get out, so there's no time really for that. Everything is real quick and structured. If we're shooting, you're still keeping a distance. You don't have that, because like I said, I was talking earlier too, I had projects scheduled in the studio, and those take time, and you kind of build a trust, and you build this relationship when you're working with someone. And with the COVID, you're not allowed to do that really. You don't have time, and other than just like freaking out, you're like, can't wait for this person to leave,
So then, like personal projects then.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that just a little bit, and how did the pandemic, did being kind of shut off from other people, did that open up another door? Did it close a window and open a door kind of thing?
I think it did, really, because the need to create is always there. It's almost like it's like an addiction. You've got to create something. Whether it's portraits or just whatever. So, and having a street photography background and it's not just limited to one thing visually. I mean, you whatever kind of grabs you. So I think probably being, I was able to get out in the woods, and spend a lot of time in the woods. So I really started looking at places that I'd been, but I hadn't had a chance to really spend time, focusing on them. So I have this pond, and I'm always fascinated by the way everything decays. As the seasons change, everything starts to decay. Fall the leaves and everything's decaying into the pond. So the textures that starts to create as you spend time there and you watch it, the process just became really visually interesting to me. So I wanted to go beyond just a basic landscape or just pretty pictures of leaves. I wanted to really capture this depth that you could see through the water of these layers of decay that were happening. And I don't know that I've fully captured that yet, but it's still been really fascinating to just focus on different times of day with the way the sun is. And so suddenly you're producing stuff, and all of a sudden there's like a body of work, you have from just this. And I'm not worried whether anybody else gets it or enjoys it. I'm just, I feel like this, solves that issue as far as being able to create or be able to, the process really is just more exciting to me, just the process to go through it. And it's also brought my painting back into play too. I've started experimenting with bringing actual art, painting and drawing back into the process of photography. So
well, and that that kind of connects. I was going to follow up with that.
Oh.
Which was so you're a photographer, filmmaker, and you have this drawing, painting, kind of beginnings. And I was curious to know if you had kind of either rekindled or discovered another type of outlet. But so you're bringing back like what you used to do into what you're currently doing now. And
I'm trying to create more alternative processes with that as well. I'm trying to experiment different ways with that. I have a dark room. I've always had a dark room everywhere. I've never not had a dark room. But the dark room became just sort of storage space over the last, almost 10 years now, I guess. And I decided that during the COVID, it's time to clean out,
Yeah.
So I took the time to do that. And so I've just gutted the dark room, painted, finished, gone back in and cleaned everything out. So now as I come back into that space, I'm looking to set up not just the enlarger and chemicals or processed prints. I'm looking to set it up more as an alternative process. And so like some small printmaking type, ideas, and like the salt printing or the cyan type, that kind of stuff too. So I want to start experimenting more with that.
So are you going to go back to, not to kind of nerd out on photography, but are you going to make large format film negatives, or are you going to print digital negatives for some of your alternative processes?
Actually, what I'm doing is working with, I'll have a digital image first, and then I will print that on an 8x10 transparency, clear transparency a sheet of film, I guess, with a laser printer.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll use that as my negative or positive to sandwich with the alternative processes, whether it's salt or cyanotype or, that's just part of it, and then incorporate some other things as well. But I still have, I'll probably start doing I have my 4x5, so I'll probably still do some, actual negatives and process the film. But as far as a quick digital film negative right now, it's the Canon laser printer.
Nice.
Yeah.
So here we are again, we're still in the pandemic. You're kind of shut off, we're all kind of socially distanced. Are there any collaborative relationships that you've developed over this past year. I know that's really difficult to do considering, but I was just thinking about, like, you have Zoom and those kind of things. I mean, are you doing anything that's long distance, that's more digital?
I've been collaborating with Shannon Simmons. I don't know if you know Shannon. Yeah, he's an awesome artist and creative person. And Shannon's come up with some great projects, and we've maintained, a relationship on working on some things. There's a short film, PSA, he just created, and I was able to help him with that for a COVID-related collaboration with the area hospitals, which he directed and wrote, and it's pretty sweet. It's really nice.
That's nice.
And that's fun to do. And
well, what about your film work? I've been meaning to ask you. I wanted to make sure that we got to some of that. Talk about some of the film projects.
I had several projects coming up, but the last one was Dark Water, was the documentary on the commercial fishermen and the Asian carp. And I've still got that out in a couple of festivals, and it's still kind of circulating, but I'm not doing anything just yet. I'm still kind of waiting on getting back into doing some documentary stuff. But right now, everything's been like 30-second or 60-second short, type pieces.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that. That's something that I've been doing for about the last year or two, is creating these 1 minute or less. I don't know what to call them either, to be honest. Short seems to cover
call them
it.
Little vignettes.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they are. And I mean, and so you find a moment, you document that, and then I create a short little soundscape of field recordings that I've done. And so and I don't know, it's oddly kind of satisfying.
It is. I enjoy doing that. And some of them kind of work. I still have some, that are just sitting there in Final Cut, that I'm like, well, I'm waiting on something, I don't know what. But in the meantime, you're trying to kind of still make a living and work and find work, well, while it's still in this process of COVID,
Right. So over the years, if you're thinking about all your projects, what's a favorite project? And that could be work, it could be personal, but like when you're thinking back about all the things that you've done, like what's something that you're like, that was it, that was the thing?
Gosh, I don't know if there's just one thing. There's so many things that, mean so many different, things to you. It's hard to say. I mean, Dark Water was big because Dark Water was one of those projects where, I mean, it was kind of shot over 6 years probably, and it was one of those things where it pushed me to a level where I was like, man, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this, but I'm thinking, no, I got to do this, but instead of trying to, worry about it and just freak out about it, I took on some other projects in between, while I shot another documentary with Shannon called the Rotunda Project, and that was about the Coke plant and the musicians coming together, and that was one of the most incredible moments as far as getting all these musicians together. And we shot like 5 nights until 2 or 3 in the morning, in a row, 5 nights in a row, I think, like that at the Coke plant. And it was all tracked live, and so we documented that process. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, you had a lot of local folks. You had Josh Coffey.
Shayna.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, Shannon Goodman. SG Goodman. Now.
SG Goodman. Yeah.
She's taken off. That's nice.
Yeah, lots of great people.
Yeah. That was a really nice film. I remember that.
So that was fun. That was big. And then, then I shot a couple other short films in between that, and then got back to finishing Dark Water. So it allowed me to kind of take a break from Dark Water, focus on some other things, and then get back to Dark Water and not be so stressed to finally get it finished.
So whenever you complete a project, and this could be even years later, or maybe while you're even still in process on a project. Is it easy for you to step back and look at it from a different perspective? Like separate the creator part of you from it so you can kind of see it a little differently?
Yeah, that's kind of fun. You never know. I mean, some things stay with you, and some things you kind of see fresh again. You see with different eyes, which is kind of neat. Some things you don't ever want to see again, but but I like that. I like being able to go back and look at it, and it's kind of nice if you can see something that maintains its longevity, I guess, in a way. It still holds,
Right.
its space. But it's also interesting to see how things date themselves and sort of create a whole different type of history with them. Because I have a background in shooting fashion work when I was in Nashville as well, and a lot of the catalog type work, for department stores and things like that. So it's real just straightforward work, but now looking at it 20 years later, it takes on this whole kind of artistic feel about it,
It's almost like camp, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So I like produced a small book of those images, which was kind of neat. And so when you go back and look at them, I like the fact that it has kind of changed, and now it's this historic little moment,
Right. So, and talking about that, so those styles change and culture changes, but technology changes, and so a lot of your work can also be framed by that as well. I mean, we're talking about pixels and megabytes and all that.
Oh yeah. Of course, coming from such an analog background, hundreds of thousands of processing film in the darkroom and all those years, and then when digital came in, I thought, man, I think I'm done. I think I'm done, and I kind of took a break from it for a while, but then I realized, no, I gotta make this, I gotta make this happen. So it took a couple of years to really get comfortable with digital, because I fought it so hard. I just didn't want to do it. And then once I realized, there's no, it's just a tool. You just got to learn to do it.
Right.
And but it's something that I still learn, more and more with it all the time. And then now, since COVID, it's almost brought me back to going into more of an analog direction again. So I kind of want to explore that, because I feel like I'm at a good place, working digitally, and there's a comfort level, and now you want to kind of push that. Yeah.
Right. So do you have a preference for analog or digital? I agree. I completely agree with you. It's a tool in the box, for sure.
Yeah.
But if you were gonna pick one, if you were on a desert island, and all you had was a film camera or a digital camera.
If the film camera, if I could shoot like Polaroid again, because that would be my preference, shooting instant film, again. Otherwise, sure, it's fun to shoot digital and you can see the image immediately, and that took some discipline as well, because I was so used to shooting film, and you're in the moment when you're shooting film. You're not looking at the back of the camera, and so I had to break myself of shooting and look and shoot, look, and get away from that. So you're just shooting, and then the only time you're looking is just maybe to check lighting or exposure or something.
Right, some kind of reference.
Before that, we would shoot Polaroids. You'd shoot a Polaroid and then you'd shoot film, to check lighting. But
do you find that you shoot more digitally than you do analog? I would assume that you do, because it's just it's just easy. It's just kind of nature of the beast.
It is. And mostly with clients now, they're like, how soon can we get these images?
Yeah, right. Everybody is used to that speed now,
So,
and of course also because of digital, everybody's also a photographer. To some degree. Sometimes I think that and this is just my opinion, I think that kind of lowers the bar for everybody else who does it on a professional level, because I think that the public kind of, I think that they are willing to accept a little bit less than, like what you could do.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate too. I've seen that, because they're willing to just accept, like, oh, it's okay, it's good. Yeah, it's good,
Yeah,
And
right.
I'm like, those aren't the clients I want,
Right.
You know.
Well, and I would think that your film background, because I feel the same way, is because you have that, because you were in the moment.
Yeah.
You just have a more discerning eye, and there's a feel about it. There's like this intangible kind of feel about it.
Exactly. And you like to work with people that understand that, and they get that, and
Yes.
And when they do, you're excited. You're excited about working with those people,
Right.
They get it, and so you go the extra mile to make that happen.
When that rapport happens, it is rewarding, because all of a sudden that's a real collaboration, I think. Even though like you're the photographer and they might be the client, you're on the same page, and you're working together to get to kind of reach their goal. And so, you're right. That always does feel nice.
So it's good. It's a good process, but it has changed. Yeah, you have to kind of get past that. And part of that is like, it's taken me a long time to get to that point where sometimes you just have to say no. There's a project or something, and it doesn't feel right. And instead of like thinking, I need the money or whatever, but no, that's not the point. You got to figure out when to say no for a certain thing that's maybe not right. That you're gonna shoot. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of other things I would love to ask you, and maybe we do like a part 2 later of this.
Sure.
I do want to ask one last question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but you might have some pearls of wisdom to share for some folks that might be interested in becoming a photographer. Whether they might be a student, they might be an art student, they might be somebody who's, maybe they've already had their career and they want to kind of get into it. But if you were going to give somebody some advice on either the business side or even just being creative, like what would that be?
Wow. Well, I think you have to have, a certain passion about, what you're pursuing. That helps, it's it's hard to, I'm like, think about that. It's just, you've got to believe in yourself and, just be passionate about what you want to do. There are no rules. There's no wrong way to pursue it. I mean, it's just what works for you, and that's really all that matters. It's about how you feel about it. It's not what everybody else feels about it, You've got to be able to,
Right, just be true to yourself, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, all right. Well, Glenn, I really appreciate you coming out today
and
talking with me. It's funny, out of all the years that we've known each other, a lot of this stuff this is like brand new information to me. Some of it I knew, some of it I didn't. So
me too, really. Yeah.
All right, well, great. Well, I really appreciate it. I'm Todd Birdsong, and thank you for watching this episode of Stage Sessions.